Hello, I'm Chris Scherer, Member Communications Director of the Society of Broadcast Engineers, and welcome to the SBE WEBxtra, the SBE chapter of the web. This is a monthly SBE meeting usually held on the third Monday of the month. The SBE is the Association for Broadcast and Multimedia Technology Professionals, with more than 4,000 members, mostly in the U.S., but also around the world. Today's SBE WEBxtra takes us back to the 2025 NAB Show. On April 8, a panel discussion was held on the floor of the West Hall discussing the SBE NAB Self-Inspection Guides. The AM, FM, and TV versions were released last year. The LPFM version was released this spring. But before we get into that, I have your SBE member update for May 19, 2025. The next SBE certification exam opportunity at chapters is in June. The application deadline for that window is closed. The next local exam window after that is in August. Apply to take an exam then by June 14. You can also arrange to take an SBE certification exam at any time via private proctoring. The long-awaited SBE Cert Preview update has been released. The new version is entirely web-based, so there's nothing to download or install, and it should work on any platform. More information on SBE certification is online at sbe.org/certification. There are several upcoming webinars by SBE on the calendar. Modern AV, Creating More with Less, will stream on June 12th. This webinar focuses on how you can harness the resources that you have at your disposal to compete with new media companies to generate compelling and engaging content that will help expand the reach and impact of your legacy radio brand. Andy Gladding is the instructor. ATSC 3.0 Update 2025 will stream on June 26. This will be a non-technical industry report on the state of traditional broadcast and opportunities offered by ATSC 3.0. Madeline Noland is the instructor. And the 2025 SBE RF Safety course was presented in May. Stephen Lockwood of Hatfield and Dawson Consulting Engineers led the course once again. You can watch the replay on demand, just like all the webinars by SBE. Go to sbe.org/webinars for more information. SBE dues were due on April 1st, and if you haven't renewed, you're in the grace period. Renew right away or you'll lose your member benefits on July 1st. You can renew online right now at sbe.org/renew. The annual SBE membership drive started March 1st. Recruit a new member before May 31st, and you can earn money off your 2026 SBE dues and also qualify for prizes that will be drawn at the conclusion of the drive. The theme this year is Expand Your Professional Horizon. Get all the details at sbe.org/drive. And that is your member update for May 19, 2025. So I mentioned today's Webxtra is a look back at the 2025 NAB Show. There was a panel discussion to discuss the SBE NAB Self-Inspection Guides. As I had mentioned, there are now 4 available, LPFM being the newest one that's been released. So we joined the replay of that panel discussion that was held on the exhibit floor of the West Hall in April.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ted Hand. I'm president of the Society of Broadcast Engineers, and welcome to the panel discussion today on the SBE NAB Broadcasters Self-Inspection Guides. We have a really good panel we've put together today. I'm just going to introduce everybody right quick, and then we'll start off with their discussion. First, we have Ched Keiler. Ched is the chair of the SBE the Government Relations Committee. Bob Weller, Vice President, Spectrum Policy, Legal, and Regulatory Affairs. Steve Campbell. Steve is on the ABIP committee. We have Sharon Tinsley, President of the Alabama Association of Broadcasters. We have Michelle Bradley, founder of REC Networks. And finally, Michelle Vanderkine, President of the Wisconsin Association of Broadcasters. A lot of hard work putting these together today. Today we're going to discuss low-power FM, and we're going to let Ched start out.
Thank you, Ted. The Society of Broadcast Engineers partnered with NAB to produce the SBE Self-Inspection Guides, including this new guide, which is geared towards LPFM. So altogether, we've produced a total of 4 guides covering the basic broadcast domains, AM, FM, and television. Today, we are here celebrating the LPFM and community radio with more than 1,900 stations. Shortly after the Local Community Radio Act of 2010 was passed by Congress and further ratified by the FCC, I had a number of organizations reaching out to me for assistance. One of those such organizations was a nonprofit in Florida called We Count. The We Count serves the South Florida community, primarily Homestead, to assist with immigrants and other such workers that are in the community that have a very narrow niche. The director of the organization realized that a community radio station, such as an LPFM, would be of great benefit to getting out a niche message to a niche community. So We Count has been on there with their radio station for 10 years, and it's been quite successful. These guides are designed to aid all broadcasters, including the community broadcasters such as We Count. The guides were developed so that station broadcast engineers and station management could perform self-inspection of their guides of their station to aid in compliance with the rules and regulations. The guides are also used by the Alternative Broadcast Inspection Program, also known as ABIP. We have Steve Campbell here, who is an ABIP inspector, and will be able to assist with any questions that come our way. He's also a valued member to the committee that produced the guides. Inspectors provide an opportunity for broadcasters to review and correct deficiencies associated with the operation of their station without an actual on-scene visit from our friendly FCC. I want to acknowledge the work of the members of the working group who developed the guides. We mentioned Steve Campbell, an ABIP inspector, Tom Ray, who is also an inspector, Larry Welkins, also an inspector and part of the Alabama Broadcast Association, Jeff Jeanette, and Shane Tobin. I'd also like to thank the SBE staff and NAB for their cooperation, and Mr. Willard as well. We also have Michelle Bradley, RecNet, who is well known in the LPFM community, and she assisted, along with Sharon Tinsley of the Alabama Broadcasters Association, who is their Alabama Broadcasters Association, along with the Wisconsin Broadcasters Association, are taking extreme interest in the guides and see the benefits of the guides to the broadcast community. The guides are available for download from the SBE website under the Regulatory Legislative tab, and they are free to SBE members. In addition, NAB, the guides are also available on the NAB website for download. So with that, that's the brief story of the guides, especially the LPFM guide.
Okay, thanks, Ched. I'm Bob Weller with NAB. In 1984, I started my career at the FCC as a field radio inspector. And at that time, there were over 300 of them spread throughout the country. And every radio and TV station was on a rotation for regular inspection. So if you got a complaint, in addition to the regular inspections, if there was a complaint about a tower light outage or operating after sunset, if you're a daytimer, you could count on being targeted for a special inspection in addition to the routine ones. So because of the frequency of those inspections, FCC field staff and the broadcast engineering community had a pretty close working relationship. And I remember calling up broadcast, say I was located in Denver. Part of my territory is Pierre, South Dakota. Takes a long time to drive there, but I knew I could pick up the phone and talk to one of the broadcast engineers there. Maybe he had a scanner or a service monitor, but he could help me out. So there was a very close relationship there, and I think because of that close relationship, when there was a violation uncovered or discovered during an inspection, usually it was a written notice of violation that required a response, but typically no fine involved unless it was a safety issue. So fines were pretty rare. So it's been 40 years, believe it or not, since I was 22-year-old runny-nosed green newbie electronics engineer with the FCC out flashing my badge. Routine inspections no longer done. Everything's complaint driven. Close relationships between the broadcast engineering community and the FCC probably still exist, but I think they're less common. And significantly, fines have become the norm rather than hey, you got a problem here, show me how you fixed it, and you're going to prevent that from recurring. Now, this thing called Loper-Bright Supreme Court decision last year, may change some of that fine behavior. The current FCC, at least on one side of the political spectrum, is not real happy with the way that the forfeitures are calculated. So changes may come, but there's certainly, I think everyone would agree, there have been some significant fines, forfeitures imposed on stations, even for things that I think are relatively minor. That said, NAB was pleased to work with SBE on producing these self-inspection guides. We're excited to announce the last guide or this latest guide. It's not going to be the last guide, but the latest guide for LPFM stations. Hopefully stations will be more comfortable at the prospect of an FCC inspection by following the recommended practices in each guide. And kudos to Ched and his team, and thank you to Michelle for her contributions to the LPFM guide, and that's it for me.
I'm Sharon Tinsley of the Alabama Broadcasters Association. My counterpart, Michelle Betterkind, on the front row from Wisconsin. Michelle and I are the co-chairs of the Alternate Broadcast Inspection Program for the National Alliance of State Broadcast Associations. And we are thrilled to be able to offer the self-inspection guides to our member stations. The state associations are becoming members of the SBE in order to be able to offer these to our stations. We see tremendous value in their ability to follow the checklist and ensure that they're compliant in every facet of their operations. And that's one of the primary roles that we serve at the state associations, is to help our stations with compliance issues and to help administer the alternate broadcast inspection program as well. So we are very appreciative of all the work that the SBE and the NAB have partnered in to make these guides available, and look forward to being able to assist our stations as they look after themselves, as well as availing themselves of the inspection program.
Imagine Michelle Bradley being at NAB talking about LPFM. 25 years ago, this would have never happened. Compliance is very important for LPFM stations, and this is something that we've been pushing for a very long time at REC. Over 10 years ago, I identified the issue with the old FCC self-inspection checklists that came out around 2008. They were outdated. They included information about LP10, which went away in 2012. And so REC has put together, we had our own publication. It was an online publication. Now our publication goes beyond the technical end that the ABIP inspection guides have, because there's also a lot of unique administrative rules where it comes to LPFM. And we want to make sure that stations are following those too. And I'm very happy to be on here and that we're able to actually work together with the SBE and the NAB in getting information out to everybody about LPFM and LPFM compliance.
So I kind of thought that maybe we would talk a little bit here about one of the unique features of the guides. Michelle brought up the ideal of the old FCC inspection list. And the guides are really something more. They offer a lot more input and guidance to somebody that's inspecting a station. So with respect to the LPFM guide, we have, and all other guides, we have what's called the recommended practice. And these appear, there's, like in the LPFM guide, there's probably, dozens of them. There's dozens of them in all the guides. This particular one deals with EAS, and it's a recommendation that we offer to the station about EAS. So, they're, like Michelle emphasized, the rules are different for LPFMs. They're not necessarily required to have an EAS encoder. But in today's world, you can't buy a decoder only from any of the major manufacturers. So you get an EAS encoder. If you're going to do radio, we recommend that you hook the encoder up in line and basically use it. And that's what this recommended practice is suggesting. It's not a requirement from the FCC that you operate this way. It's just a recommended practice. And there are a number of examples, like I say, in the guides that cover all kinds of areas. They cover the rules, they cover power levels and transmission and so forth. This is just one example of how the guides add benefit to an inspection process for a station.
Okay. So Ched mentioned, and I think Michelle also mentioned, the self-inspection checklists that the FCC used to publish. They're still on the FCC's website. I've been trying to get them to take them down, but they're still up there. Don't recommend that you use them. As others have mentioned, the self-inspection checklists were basically a rule section number and a do you comply, do you not comply, without any sort of interpretation about, well, okay, what does this rule mean? What does it mean to comply? So although those checklists were nice because they were 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages, depending upon which service it was for, they weren't very detailed, and they often weren't that helpful in determining compliance. So the self-inspection guides that are now available from NAB and SBE are a lot more robust in providing maybe some background on the rule, a statement of the rule itself, and then some guidance on what it means to comply with the rule. So they're just looking at the number of pages involved, you may be a little bit put off, but you want to make sure you're in compliance and just take the time to go through them page by page.
So with that said, does anybody have any questions for the panelists up here?
This could be a really short panel. Nobody has any questions.
While we're looking for that, be sure to, if you have any questions, about anything with the guide, you can do. The email address is guides@sbe.org. Guides@sbe.org. That's a mailer, and we'll get back to you and respond to it.
You can see that. That's up on the screen here, as well as you can stop by the booth here at NAB. We're down there in the north lobby at booth NL2. So I guess I'll ask Steve here. Or, go ahead.
Well, I was going to add a comment that we don't have at our association in Alabama, the Alabama Broadcasters Association, we don't have a large number of LPFM station members. We would very much like to, because of all the people we could help in the state, they're probably a group that needs us as much or more than anyone, because they're often community organizations that don't have experience but certainly have good cause for wanting and needing to have an LPFM station on the air. So I'm hoping that having the self-inspection checklist available for them will help us engage with that group more.
Yeah, I am out there, I'm out there supporting having LPFM stations do join their state broadcasters association. But I'll be honest with you, there has been some history regarding the SBAs. At first, there was a lot of resistance from some of the SBAs to embrace LPFM, but we're starting to see that change over the years as LPFM stations have established themselves. They proved themselves. They're not the pirates that people were suspecting they would have been back in the 90s. Yes, I'm talking to you, Don Shellhart and the late Nick Leggett. LPFM has proven itself. And one of the reasons why I'm here is because I am in the process right now of, creating common ground between what we do at REC and with NAB. And we've made a lot of progress in the past few years, and I'm really happy about that. And we're seeing a lot of LPFM stations out there doing incredible things for their communities. And we got new stations that are coming on the air now. We just had a filing window in December of 2023. We have over 700 grants, I believe, and there's still a few more out there that still need to be granted. And we're going to get these stations on the air, and they're going to need help. They're going to need help from the SBAs, from the state broadcasters associations, and of course they can always come to me. And my advice is always free, and we'll be more than happy to help, and we'll be more than happy to send them in the direction of their state broadcasters associations.
I'd go on to add that SBE is a good source for education. We concentrate on educating engineers and station personnel, and the guides are just an example of that. So anybody that wants to join SBE, they can go to the booth down here at NL2 and join and gather a wealth of educational information. So Steve, what do you think is the best way to use the guide if you're just getting a guide and you want to take a look at your station?
Well, the guides were intended really for a purpose of inspecting the station more than they were actually for the ABIP program. And the best use is to actually go through the guide and read it and check off the questions. It's fairly self-explanatory. The good thing about the guide, if you've comfortably checked everything on the guide that you think it's going to be okay, a self-inspection or an FCC inspection, should it happen, should be easy, should be a breeze. Once you have gone through the self-inspection guide and legitimately looked at everything, you can sleep well knowing that the FCC is not going to find too many things that are going to cost you money.
And the nice thing about these guides are, and the LPFM guide as well as the Full Power FM guide, is they are written in a way that the less experienced broadcaster would understand. And that's what I appreciate about them, is they demystify them, kind of the same way I do with my list. They're very, the average person could pick up this guide. They don't have to be a You know, they don't have to have a CBRE certification from the SBE to understand what's in this guide. And that's what I like about it.
That was one of the goals of the guide, is that we wanted to make the guide what we call a self-inspection guide, so that anybody at the station could acquire it, read through it, and understand what needs to take place to be in compliance with the rules and regulations. So before in every section, there's a narrative that talks about that section in some detail, followed by questions asking about the state of the station and the station documents and the state of the transmitter and that kind of thing, along with the recommended practices that we talked about earlier.
One thing that we want to see in the SBE and the NAB is that these guides not become like the FCC checklists and become stagnant and stale. We will constantly be looking at the guides and doing updates, particularly as the rules change, which they may change in the next few years very quickly. And we want to keep these guides current. But to that end, if there's anything in the guide that doesn't make sense or is not clear, or that anybody can suggest be made more clear or better, a message to this email address will get that information to us, and it will help the committee to improve the guides and make them more user-friendly. So please, if you have any ideas, let us know.
So I come from the full power world, and maybe we could talk a little bit about common violations. And I'm really unfamiliar what sort of, and I shouldn't use the word violations here. Maybe, I don't know, concerns, mistakes. Anyway, that might exist in the low power FM world. In the full power world, I think the most common rule violation, at least when I was a radio inspector, had to do with public file. And the public file requirements, I know, for low power FMs are considerably reduced from the full power world. So maybe Michelle or somebody else could comment on, you know, what sort of problems are you seeing that you might be concerned about?
Yeah, you know, I think that on the LPFM side, I think you know, I have definitely seen my share of technical issues, but I think a lot of the issues on the LPFM side are administrative, and those are things that are not covered in this guide. They're covered in my material, but they're not covered in this guide because it's not something that would come up in an inspection. For example, an LPFM corporation, a nonprofit, if they don't file their annual reports with the state Secretary of State and their organization becomes dissolved, they're technically not an organization anymore until they get that fixed. That's one of the big problems that we have right now in the LPFM community.
That's a full power issue also.
Yeah.
And I can add that from time to time, it's actually been a little while, but from time to time I would get phone calls from full power broadcasters complaining about an area LPFM because of the nature of the ad content, that it was not the underwriting in the manner that it's proposed for LPFMs, but it was actually what they thought as a competitor to be straight up advertising.
Unfortunately, that is unfortunately a huge issue that I'm dealing with. I have an entire compliance guide that's regularly updated. Any LPFM station, actually any non-com, can send me an email with their proposed copy. Out of everybody who evaluates underwriting announcements out there, I am one of the strictest people out there where it comes to that. I believe in the business card. Basically, whatever you see on the business card, the name of the business, their access information, a very brief description of the lines of business. Don't go any farther. You're identifying, not promoting. And that is, trust me, I scream this to both the LPFM and the full power non-com communities.
I know in the guide we covered that a little bit and how LPFM stations should be sponsored, and one other unique thing about the guide is when we talk about this, we reference the rules. And in the PDFs that you get, the rules are all hyperlinked. So you can just click on them and it will easily take you to a spot where you can read the rule for yourself and make your own interpretations. We, like with all our guides, we always recommend that if you don't understand something, you seek education on it and use a qualified consultant or engineer to answer your questions.
All right, we'll take one more. Any questions? We'll go around it again.
Nobody wants to turn anybody in?
Just for the SBA, State Broadcasters Associations, the other broadcasters out there, if you ever have any concerns about LPFM, either at the station level or just LPFM in general, my door is always open. And feel free to get in touch with me, and I'll speak to anybody about this. I have no problem with this. I'll tell you right now, just because you have an LP after your call sign, you do not get a get out of jail free card with REC. And trust me, I get down on LPFMs sometimes pretty hard.
Since Michelle mentioned the state broadcast associations, I want to point out that Randy Gravely is sitting with Michelle, and Randy runs the Georgia Association of Broadcasters.
Right over here.
I think, in talking about violations, I think one of the biggest ones I've seen as a contract engineer is chief operator weekly log reviews. I don't know if that is required for the LPFM EAS logs as well or not, but I think, that's the biggest one I've seen is, gee, do I have to do this every week?
Well, the requirements for EAS logs do exist for LPFM, but they're unique in the sense they're not quite the same requirements for full power. And as far as chief operators are concerned, when we wrote the guides, there were some issues with who would be the point person at an LPFM, as well as like translators, for example. With this next filing window coming up with the FCC, I believe SBE will be filing some comments along that line to suggest that maybe there should always be an appointment for a chief operator at any type of broadcast station. Because it's as simple as, if you're the owner of an LPFM, you just make yourself the chief operator.
Yeah, because LPFM specifically does not have a chief operator requirement in the rule. That's one of the full power rules that doesn't apply to LPFM.
So who's supposed to review the EAS log, or nobody reviews it?
Well, we tell the stations that they should be reviewing their EAS logs. They should be checking. Maybe check them. Every so often, and make sure that you're getting your. Make sure you're getting your two LP1, your LP2, and your iPods coming through. And and if you're not, then you need to look at that and see what can be done. EAS is a huge issue, I feel, with LPFM stations, and that's one of the things I'm working on right now. Is I've already identified all the LPFM stations that hasn't been participating in the national periodic tests. I know who they are, and actually, REC has a recognition program for LPFM stations. It's called PACE. Participation for participating in the EAS tests. Availability. Has the station been silent for more than 365 days within the past 4 years? Compliance. Have they received any naughty notes in the past 4 years? And experience. Has the same organization licensed the station and you've been the licensee of the station for the past 4 years. If you ever go on fccdata.org or fcc.today, which are the two sites that are operated by REC, if you ever look at the LPFM stations, if you see a little green star after the call letters, that's a station that we have determined has passed all 4 of those criteria. And that's what we use to recognize the LPFMs that are playing by the rules.
Anybody else have any other questions? Well, why don't we go ahead and start wrapping this up? Does anybody have any final comments about anything?
Nobody complains when you go short.
All right, well, we appreciate the panel. It was a very interesting panel. A lot of good questions, a lot of good discussions, and we appreciate you being here today. Again, if you have any questions, the email and the website address is up here on the screen. And we appreciate you coming today, and have a good show.
Thanks very much.
Thank you
for
very
attending.
much, and I'll be walking the floor. If anybody has any questions, you feel free to come see me. You know, again, even on the floor at REC, the advice is free.
And there you go. The SBE Self-Inspection Guides can be downloaded from the SBE website. Go to the SBE bookstore. The guides are free to both SBE members and NAB members at no charge. Once again, go to the SBE bookstore and you can find them listed there. So again, thanks for watching the SBE WEBxtra, the SBE chapter of the web from the Society of Broadcast Engineers, the Association for Broadcast and Multimedia Technology Professionals. If you hold SBE certification, viewing the SBE WEBxtra qualifies you for 1/2 point in Category G. That's attendance. It's just like attending a local chapter meeting. If you have an idea for a topic or a guest for the SBE WEBxtra, send it to webextra@sbe.org. Thanks again for watching. I'm Chris Scherer, SBE Member Communications Director. We'll see you next month.